where two people were involved. One of them was arrested, but later on his case was dismissed as they did not have enough evidence. In interviews that he was saying that he didn't fully remember the night. Prosecutors were saying that there may be some drug use involved in that. In the video that we saw at one point, he can be seen running away from where the shooting took place before a car took off. And we later learned that the person who was driving that car was Caleb Ward, who was in court today and pled guilty to the murder of Nathan Martin.
Now, for those who are not familiar, is this connection connected with the other trial that took place regarding? I want to say the same situation, or I'm probably thinking about something completely different.
I think it's something different.
Okay.
This is a standalone thing with this one incident between Martin, Bryant, and Ward, who were all in the car together. Bryant, of course, as I mentioned, he had his case dismissed. Ward had his case today. It was initially going to be a capital murder charge, but he pled down to first-degree murder, and it was a 25-year sentence.
All right, here it is.
And so talk to me about how you are feeling after today's hearing that we just had.
I think it was a good disposition. I think the main thing was this is a case that started in juvenile, so we were able to get it certified. Our juvenile prosecutor did a great job with that, which puts it into a lot more, I guess you would say, strict punishment as opposed to juvenile. And with that, we're able to get what we thought was a good sentence for somebody who's 16 years old, especially in light of talking with the family. They understood everything and they were agreeable with it, and that's always very important to us.
And of course, you mentioned starting in the juvenile system.
Correct.
Does that cause any issues when we're going through the process and now he becomes an adult?
Really, it doesn't. I mean, there's a number of safeguards, if you will. I mean, it was handled in the appellate system. Eventually, the Supreme Court did not accept it, but that has been resolved. Either way, the plea today would resolve any other kind of outstanding appellate issues that came with the certification, which was another reason we wanted to get the plea in this case.
And it going through the appellate court, I've heard of something like that. So talk to me about that process of why it goes through the appellate court.
It just does, just like any other case. You're going to go up to your Court of Appeals, and then depending on what the Court of Appeals does, the Supreme Court or Court of Criminal Appeals can decide to take it. In this case, since it was a certification, went up to the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals affirmed the certification. The next step was to go to the Supreme Court of Texas, who they denied to review the case, so everything was upstanding on the certification. But again, all that's been resolved with the plea today.
And now talk to me about this agreement. How is that 25 years reached? I believe the family said you guys were going for 30 initially.
Correct. And so it's one of those things, we had done that. There was the possibility of getting it resolved with 25 years confinement. Texas Department of Corrections. We thought with everything involved in the case, that was the best disposition. There's always the inherent risks that go with trial. Again, you get the 25 years, you waive the right to all of the appeals, which is always important to us.
And initially when we first had covered this, there wasn't really too much mention of Ward, so how does he sort of come into play in this murder?
Well, he was in the vehicle. They had known each other, and so it was a kind of, I don't want to say complicated, but kind of a unique fact scenario. They ended up in the vehicle together. Apparently there was some sort of dispute. One thing led to another, and that's how we ended up where we are today, unfortunately.
And so it was him, Brian, and Martin. All three were in the vehicle, correct?
That would be correct, yes, sir.
Gotcha. And so in the video that was mentioned in that previous reporting, Brian was seen running away. With that, his case, how did that end up? And talk a little bit about his sort of...
Well, that case was brought to us. We discussed it with law enforcement. We had discussions with them, kind of what their thoughts were on it. It was one of those where under the law, we have to be able to prove things beyond a reasonable doubt, not necessarily whether or not we think there was something there or not, can we prove it? On that particular case with him, there wasn't enough where legally in good faith we could prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. So that case was declined for prosecution.
And so with Bryant, he was in the vehicle with Ward, but it was
Correct.
deemed that everything was of Ward's doing.
That's, yes, based on the information we had.
Okay. And what motive does there seem to be for this crime?
Very good question. And unfortunately, nobody's really exactly sure. You have what happened in that car. We have one of the accounts. Apparently there was some sort of disagreement, but as far as a motive, it's one of those things that we run into in a lot of these cases. There just isn't a good explanation. It's a tragic thing really for everybody involved.
And of course, there was mention of drug use with Brian and him not remembering things. Did that sort of play into his case not being able to go forward?
Exactly right. I think that had a lot to do with, it appeared that there were some issues with that in the sense that he was, drug use, which made it difficult to really know exactly is there enough there to go on or not go off of. So that had a lot to do with our decision on that case.
And when you guys were talking with him, did he ever mention Ward as somebody who was involved in this case?
Well, we didn't speak with him. Law enforcement did. He did make reference to him and to the events of that day.
And so you mentioned there was a connection between Ward and the victim, correct?
But that is correct, yes.
And how did they know each other? How long?
I don't remember the exact amount of time. It had been, I think they weren't like, I would say, best of friends, but they kind of knew each other and they were acquaintances and they just all happened to be together on this particular evening.
And so, of course, juvenile credit and credit for time served in the
Correct.
correctional facility. How
Yes.
much time served do we think that he's going to be getting?
I'd have to go back and check on that, though. I know that it's been in the system a while. I believe the arrest date on it was 24, I believe, was when it was. So probably looking at a couple of years would be my understanding.
And so just going back to one more time, talk about, we saw Brian running away. What do we think sort of happened within that vehicle that led to this murder?
From what we know and the information we had and some of the things that already seen in the probable cause affidavit, apparently that there was some drug use involved, and in light of that, emotions were high. There was an argument. The other individual who ran out of that vehicle said he stepped out. He heard a gunshot, looks back, and with that, you end up with the deceased, and then you have the defendant who pled today. So that's really the extent of what we know about it.
And there was a mention that he was on the run for a little bit. How did you guys end up finding him?
Just law enforcement did a great job talking with people that knew him and just following up on leads, anonymous calls, all those sort of things that they do, and they did a good job on this case.
And of course, talking with the victim's father, he mentioned that the Mustang that he had was stolen. Was a piece of evidence that led to a breakthrough in this in a way?
Yes, that was something we were able to, well, eventually that vehicle was found. It was wrecked out, but we're able to kind of trace back from that the connections to the defendant, other people involved.
Gotcha. And just wrapping up, is there anything else about this case that I have not missed out on, or if anything that I may be missing to fully tell this story?
I don't believe so, other than we thought it was the best resolution that we could get with the facts, and the most important thing was the family was content with the resolution.